word placebo. It's such a flaccid, puny word. And we would pick a flaccid, puny word to hide our most powerful source of energy behind it. And that's what mankind's doing. When you look at the placebo effect, you start to understand why is the exact same drug rated in terms of power. If it's a leaf, that's like the least effective. If it's a stalk, that's the second most effective. If it's the flower, that's the third. If it's the root, that's the fourth. And then if you put it up in a powder and conglomerate it into a pill, that's 5 times more powerful. Then if you put a logo on the pill, that's 6 times more powerful. Then if you coat it in a yellow gel and put a blue stripe around it, that's 7 times more powerful. Then if you liquefy that, put it in a syringe and stick it in someone's arm, it's 15 times more powerful. And science has known this since day one. We've known the entire time this is how medicine works. In fact, we have to spend so much money trying to eliminate the placebo effect that we discover that most of the medicine, or really it's petroleum, most of the petroleum that we're feeding each other simply only works maybe 5 to 7% as effective as the placebic effect that they had to eliminate from the control group. And you can never get rid of that control group. The sanitation workers, the janitors, the parking lot attendants, the security guards, every single person that works at that pharmaceutical factory has a technology of belief that the product that they put out will cause healing. Then you have 98% of the public watching a TV commercial that evangelically decide, if I take Prilosec OTC, I will feel better. That is a technology of belief. That's a living plasma that's been ingested into that company, into what they produce. But the entire time they're pretending that this placebo effect has been trapped because we put it behind doors and we have a double-blind study. But every single person that works at the company, every single person that's brought in to test it knows I am there to test whether or not a drug works. I will give my plasma wherever I want because I want you guys to find a drug that works because it benefits me too. So we understand now this isn't about science. It's not about pills. There's never been a chemical imbalance found ever. I watched Ritalin wash over the beach like some massive tidal wave. And that had never been proven. But the next thing you know, we end up with this ADHD culture where it becomes a fashion. And then you end up wanting the same kind of belief medicine or the same kind of petroleum to save it there too. I believe that's why we have this fake oil crisis where we're insisting that we're running out of oil. But we've been told we're at peak oil in 1995, 2010, 2015, 2020. Meanwhile, BP has literally come out and said, there's no oil shortage. We have no oil shortage. We have plenty of oil. But if we make it scarce, the very same oil is the very same medicine that we can sell back to ourselves and insist that it is the power. It is the way of unlocking the placebo in you by taking this pill. And that's what we're doing. You're going to a doctor. You're asking him, could you please wear a ceremonial robe? Could you please administer one of 15 different placebic effects from syringe all the way down to giving me a flower? Can you make me wear a paper robe that's cut in the back so my vulnerability will drop, so my shell will drop and I will feel vulnerable and exposed? And then will you administer the pill from behind a clipboard with a stethoscope, because of all of this magic allows me to tap into my torque of belief and fucking feel better. That is how afraid we are of our own power, that we will bequeath our own power to us, but only if we come out through this outside source, attack us in the form of modern medicine and give us permission to unlock the things that are already inside us. When I tell people this is a technology of belief, it bothers me to think that people walk away claiming that I think it's simple. This is one of the hardest muscles you can ever lift, is your torque of belief. It is one of the hardest. You cannot play fantasy games with it. You could do that when you were 5, but now you're older and you have to believe in order to pull the same throttle that you used to pull as a kid. So this isn't funny business. This is really, really hard work.
If we intellectually know what you just told us, that we have more power than we could have ever believed, and most of these drugs are just placebos, why can't we just snap our fingers or just believe that we're going to feel better? Even if we have that belief ourselves, like if we say look, I know I'm spiritual. I've been on this spiritual road for 20, 30 years now. And I know how powerful I am. And you know what? I don't need the drugs. I don't need the supplements. I could do it myself. And then I say my affirmations, I pray, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, because in order for us to, if we're going to torque our own belief, most of the time it's not going to be as effective as if we use some sort of outside element to torque our belief. A mother can lift a freaking Buick if there's a baby underneath it and if that baby's hers. Like she can pull that much power because of something outside of herself that she's able to tap into. We will always be able to tap into this power by using something outside of ourselves. And you could just look at this as this is how we're learning to walk. We're slowly gaining momentum. We're stepping out of our crutches and we're learning to walk. And we're going to grab each other as we pull ourselves up. When you start to focus on the meditation of, let's say, elite sports, one of the biggest realms where the technology of belief is utilized, you're looking at someone that you could argue that, well, he lifts his weight so he can be strong. Yeah, we could say that. But when we look at the world of consciousness, we understand that the elite athlete lifts weights so he can be confident, not strong. He's confidently torquing his belief because he believes that he deserves it more than anyone else because he works harder than anyone else. By him working harder than anyone else, he is convincing his torque of belief that he's allowed to secrete or open that faucet up. That allows him to jack into it. We are a symbiotic species, so our mammalian brains are tapped into each other. That's why the crowd always helps. Whenever the athlete has a crowd, he's able to tap into that because he's feeding off the torque of that belief. When we do this by ourselves, it becomes much more difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's some of the most Zen Buddhist stuff that you can imagine because you're literally playing with your own plasma and creating a free energy device out of it versus tapping into a large social structure, right? Fame, all these kinds of energies are plasma. And once we start to understand the energy and the calories in that plasma, we'll just tap into it more, I think.
I watched a couple of videos recently about a guy that calls himself a grandmaster. I think it's Grandmaster Wolf. I don't know if we talked about this in our last interview, but in one of the videos, you could see he's causing fire with his hands. Like he just puts his hand out and fire happens, or, you know, he could do telekinesis and things like that. Is that all possible? You know, is he really doing that? Like if we have enough belief, can we do things like that?
So, first of all, I don't want anyone to think that I think I only have it all figured out, but I just want people to know this is how I've been seeing it. My cipher lately is that when I see your aura, I'm rendering your aura with my compassion in my retinas. Because I have a feel for you, I will put an aura on you because it best matches your emotional state. It's an asynchronous kind of painting. I believe this energy that so many of us think that we don't have, but it's just out of reach, things like telekinesis, really comes down to just empathy, compassion. Compassion is this kind of sonar that you can see through someone's skin, through their clothing, watch their gait, watch the way they hold themselves, and firmly get a grip of their energy state. And you can render this. Once you have that frequency, you actually invoke telekinesis, communication, because they instantly see that you're on their frequency. This is regulation. Now we will pace each other because I've met your frequency. So when two people are at 117 hertz, both of them are sort of in charge of the boat. Both of them can raise the group up, meaning the two of them up to 120, or they can take them down to 96. And this is the prana economy that I speak about a lot. It's an invisible energy economy that we establish with everyone in the room. There's going to be usually someone that plays the golden child in some type of prana economy. They're considered the greater versus the lesser. Lesser isn't actually a negative term, by the way. And this is why it takes so long for people to understand my work, because Consciousness breeds better when it stays lower. When it crouches, consciousness doesn't have to endure the same kind of difficulties as someone with a higher frequency has to endure. We don't understand this yet because we've glorified what it's like to be higher, have higher consciousness, and we've glorified it by insisting that